目は口ほどに物を言う。
The eyes speak as much as the mouth. This old Japanese proverb reminds us that sometimes watching something without saying anything can teach us more than 1,000 words. The story, The Overflow Paradox, a Zen master's guide to open minds, is based on this knowledge. Welcome to Grandpa Wisdom Story, your go-to channel for engaging, timeless tales full of life lessons. Once upon a time, in a quiet, peaceful part of Japan during the Meiji era, when the island nation was going through a lot of big changes. A Zen master named Nan-in lives here. He lived a simple life that showed how Zen tried to achieve harmony and balance. He was a wise man who was always calm and peaceful. He was a lighthouse for people who were lost in the rough seas of life. One day, someone came to see him. The man was a well-known and respected university professor who had moved from the busy city of Tokyo to the quiet mountain town of Nan-in. He wanted to know and understand things, and he looked for them in the mysterious world of Zen. But he was a man who had been shaped by academics and theories. His mind was a vessel full of scholarly deductions and ideas he had already decided on. Nan-in smiled softly and invited the professor into his small home. There, in the middle of nature, Nan-in began the traditional ceremony of serving tea. The bird songs were like a symphony. It was a slow, careful process, a dance of patience and calmness that showed what Zen is all about. As the professor watched, Nan-in put the fragrant infusion into a fine cup. The amber liquid swirled and steamed, and Nan-in kept pouring even when the tea was full. The professor was confused at first, then worried as the tea started to spill out and make a small pool of steam on the old wooden table. When the professor finally couldn't hold it in any longer, he blurted out,
"It's too full. There's no more room."
His eyes showed how shocked he was, which was a reflection of how out of control his mind felt when he saw so much waste. Nan-in looked calmly into the professor's eyes and stopped pouring.
"Like this cup?"
He said in a quiet voice that still carried in the quiet of his home.
"You are full of your own thoughts and ideas. How can I show you Zen if your cup is still full?"
There was a moment of silence, and the only sound was the occasional drip of tea on the wooden table. The professor just looked at Nan-in, his face a picture of a man trying to make sense of something very important. The Zen master's words, which were simple but deep, broke through his academic arrogance and challenged him to empty his cup of preconceived ideas in order to truly understand what Zen is all about. In a modern world we live in now, where information overload is part of our daily lives, the wisdom in The Overflow Paradox, a Zen master's guide to open minds, is very relevant. We get a lot of information, ideas, and points of view. The problem isn't that there is so much information coming at us, but that our minds aren't open to it because we have already made up our minds and have strong beliefs. The usefulness of a cup is in its being empty, said British philosopher Alan Watts. Think about how we use social media and news outlets as an example. With a full cup, or mind, we run the risk of falling into the trap of confirmation bias, where we only take in information that backs up what we already believe and ignore anything that goes against it. This makes us see the world in a smaller way, stops us from growing as people, and keeps us from getting along. But if we empty our cups, we can listen and understand better and be more open to different points of view. Businesses that do well today are a good example of how this principle is used. The idea of an empty cup is what makes the most innovative companies work. Steve Jobs once said, "Stay hungry, stay foolish." His words echo the idea that you should always keep an open mind and be ready to learn, change, and adapt. In the end, The Overflow Paradox, a Zen master's guide to open minds, is more than just an old Zen story. It's a reminder and a universal lesson that can be applied to our personal lives, the way society works, and how we run our businesses, It tells us to empty our cups from time to time, which makes room for new ideas, learning, and a broader view of the world. As we go through life, let's remember to empty our cups and keep our minds open to all the different things it has to teach us.